All right, it's 10:02. Let's go. So, all right, students, thank you for joining me, and I'm glad this worked out. I love the fact that you're all here. So I'll collect a little feedback later as far as are you on your phone, your iPad, your laptop, computer, you're sitting in a lab on headphones, or you're laying in bed, whatever the case. I want to get an idea of how you're tuning in, just to get an idea of how this is working. I want to try this out, so I will ask for comments here and there. Obviously, questions for Coach. You can just throw a comment up anytime about anything he says, or if you miss something. We talked about all these. So we're blessed to have Coach Matt Saitz here with us today. So Matt Saitz is a certified strength and conditioning specialist. He'll get into his other certifications. So if you are looking into any certifications, or you're thinking about becoming a physical therapist versus a strength coach versus a personal trainer, there's some differences in what certifications you might go after. So Coach can talk about that a little bit. And then what it's like to be a strength coach here, and his journey to being here sitting with us today. So, Coach, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me. And I apologize in advance for the students that I've already had in class, or student athletes I've already worked with. Hopefully I don't bore you guys too much today.
This is always good. So we can start anywhere. Coach, I think to start a little bit, if you could go back, most of our students are freshmen and sophomores. We have a few transfers in, they're juniors. But if you could go back maybe to when you were a freshman, sophomore, junior in college, kind of wrapping your head around what a day in the life would be as an exercise science professional, or whatever you called it at the time. You start there?
Well, if I start there, I would tell you I wasn't even an exercise science recruit or major. When I first started my freshman year, I had the idea of being a physical therapist. And I think, a lot of kids coming out of high school, they have the idea of what they want to do based on any perception or any experience they've had in the past. And the idea kind of was inspired from an injury and lack of, speed to come back to return to play in time and stuff like that. So I guess that kind of formulated this idea that I wanted to be a therapist and find better ways to rehabilitate injuries. But within the first semester, it wasn't exactly something I was interested in the sense that I guess I had this idea of wanting to work with healthy individuals and not people that were hurt, which is kind of funny because in this field, you're going to work with more people that are hurt than are healthy. So it kind of comes full circle. But I transitioned from physical therapy to physical education just because I like education. I like the idea of teaching and learning on a personal level. But I found that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do as well. So by my sophomore into my junior years, when I started to switch and transition into what they referred to as a health and wellness major, because exercise science, the title itself, didn't exist till after I graduated. So I pursued health and wellness as my fit. And I guess I can get into that a little bit as we go along in this discussion as far as why I chose that. But that's kind of the path I took from a mindset perspective on how I transitioned to, I guess, exercise science.
So your undergraduate degree then ended up being health and wellness? Was it a degree in? It's
a degree in health and wellness, correct, yes.
And from?
Missouri State University. So I did my undergrad in Springfield, Missouri at Missouri State. And I did further pursued graduate level work, not until after I actually got the job at Webster and pursued a master's degree, being that a college strength and conditioning coach needs to have that master's degree credential, essentially. So I pursued a master's degree in education. So that was kind of the specific educational route that I took. A little unorthodox, though, because it was separated. I didn't go right into my master's. I waited about 4 or 5 years between.
And that's after you got here, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, all right. So you graduate. You're walking out. You got a degree in health and wellness. You're ready to take on the world. What was that? What was your first job straight out of college?
First job straight out of college was probably not unlike a lot of people. I got actually 2 jobs I received. So my first one was at the JCCA in Creve Coeur. So I was a personal trainer there. I worked a lot with the geriatric population just because the clientele that came in the time of day I worked there was more older adults. So I worked 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. typically. And then on top of that, I had an additional job where I worked at Excel Sports and Physical Therapy out in Cottleville. They had a small athletic enhancement sports performance facility on top of their physical therapy practice. And I worked there under the direction of Kevin Cromer, who was a former athletic trainer for the St. Louis Cardinals. So I worked both with the older population and then with the youth, high school, some collegiate, and some semi-pro athletes as well. So I kind of got a little bit of everything in regards to exposure to multiple movers in the human condition. So, but there were long days. I would go from about 6 a.m. to 2 at one job, drive all the way across St. Louis to the west side of St. Charles County and work the remainder of the day, that 3 or 4 o'clock to 10 p.m. And that was Monday through Friday, and then on Saturdays as well. So a lot to unfold there.
Nice. Yeah. Which is good as far as a day in the life. If you get into fitness, if you get into personal training, or really anything, as far as today's world goes, I also see physical therapists. Maybe it was 9 to 5, 8 to 5, but there's a lot of shifts now that PTs are working either 6 to 2 p.m. or they work, 2 to 8 p.m., something like that, to accommodate people. As a personal trainer, if you're going into fitness, at least in the beginning, you're working when everyone else is not working.
Exactly.
Right? And so your morning hours, you were picking up everybody, right? Your 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 a.m. clients, things like that.
Right. And coffee wasn't cool at the time. I drank coffee out of necessity. It wasn't really the cool thing.
Right.
And that's when I got into drinking coffee. So, yeah.
Your coffee, not your bangs and your rock stars. And
you name it. Yeah, whatever.
So as far as the similarities, and I think this is important. I talked to this class already a lot about this, as far as who you're working with. And as you said earlier, you work with a healthy population. You want to help people run faster and jump higher. And we'll talk about that even at Webster University. It's not like you're just working with college athletes and helping everyone, put on 10 pounds of muscle and jump higher. But as far as the differences and similarities between the population, so when you say geriatric, describe that a little better. What's a typical client at the JCC that you are working with?
Well, someone that was, I think my youngest client was, 55. So I can't really put them in that necessarily. I can't really group them in there, but the younger
with that geriatric clientele.
I know. I don't want to put a bad taste in people's mouth, but it was probably my youngest around 55, but most of them were in their late 60s, early 70s, and the overall training goal or their purpose for training was really just better functionality throughout the day. Can they climb up steps? Can they do yard work? Can they do simple daily tasks better? And those were the goals there. We're vice versa on the other end. When I'm training young athletes, performance is the goal, and making sure that they can improve upon a specific task in regards to a sport. And I guess the value of each, it's a little bit different. When you value the life skill versus value a performance skill in a sport, you're talking about two completely different things. And to be honest with you, it's really rewarding to see someone improve upon something that just helps their general daily life. So when you can get on the ground and play with your grandkids and stand back up, can you walk up and down the stairs to do laundry? I mean, those are general life skills that when people can do them on their own, they can function on their own, and it creates a better autonomous life for them. So I would say that's the biggest difference between the two.
So you worked at JCC for a while. So were you doing pretty well? Or was it just kind of a little chaotic? You knew you wanted to do something different?
Yeah. So I guess at the time it motivated me to want to pursue more school. And not that I didn't like it. I built great relationships. I love communicating with the older populations anyways. It's just something I've always been able to do and enjoy. I love hearing the stories. I love interacting and picking their brain. But on top of that, working at two different facilities with two different populations, I wanted to kind of hone in on one and focus on a little bit more. And I figured education was going to be the route to do that initially, as far as advanced degrees. But an opportunity to come up when I was working at Excel Sports, I saw a few jobs that were posted on the NSCA website for minor league strength and conditioning coach positions in professional baseball. Not that I had any experience specifically training baseball. I mean, I played it my whole life and I enjoy the sport. And actually my boss at the time tried to convince me not to do it, just because it's a hard family life. I was young, I was getting married. and it's very much, you're uprooted from your family often and separated for, months at a time. But, selfishly, I wanted to try to break into professional sports and see what would happen. So I applied for a few. And when I say applied, I also, reached out kind of unorthodox, and they didn't have positions. So I applied for a couple teams. I applied for the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Kansas City Royals that were posting jobs, in the Atlanta Braves. But the St. Louis Cardinals, who are a local team, they didn't have anything posted. I just reached out to the AA general manager for the Springfield Cardinals via email. His email was listed on the internet. So I just sent him an email, say, hey, is there any possible job openings, or are you guys interested in having a strength and conditioning coach at AA? Having no idea what exactly that entailed. And he sent me an email back within a day, gave me the information of the major league strength coach and how to contact him, Pete Prinzi. So I contacted him immediately, and he got me in contact with the minor league coordinator, Keith Joint, and they interviewed me and offered me a job. It was kind of a made up job. At the same time, the Braves were talking to me. They called me, and we had a few phone interviews. So mind you, both positions I was offered, I had not been seen by either one of them. They hadn't seen me. They hadn't seen anything I could do. It was really just word of mouth and just general over the phone discussion, which is really interesting.
Right. Yeah.
There's no way to validate whether I was good or not. But to be honest with you, I was offered a job with both, and I took a job with the Braves. And the reason I did is I just felt I wasn't pursuing the Braves. The Braves were pursuing me. And then the conversation I had with the individuals overseeing the programs, my interviews, lasted an hour or 2 hours on the phone, but they had nothing to do with baseball or sports performance. It had everything to do with everything else in life. So I think they just wanted to see, hey, can he hold the conversation with us? Is this someone we can work with? Which I think is a very interesting tactic, and also a very valuable point to understand that, you can learn just about anything as far as methods and based on the system you're going in. But if you are someone that people can work with, if you're someone that they communicate with and they can want to build a relationship with you, you're more than likely going to get a position based on that versus your just overwhelming knowledge and your straight A's and stuff like that. So if there's a takeaway from a professional standpoint, being a good communicator in the sense that you can have a fairly good conversation with someone just about anything.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's perfect. And I think we'll talk about that's what I like about this class anyway. We'll talk about that because everything else we learn, kinesiology and everything else, it's all about muscle insertions and how to squat.
Sure.
But, as far as having that phone call and just being able to shoot the breeze with someone, on the phone for a while or talk football, whatever you guys talked about. I remember one of your interviews was all about football, right?
The New York Football Giants. Yep. They were in the Super Bowl, and that's the director of strength and conditioning, Phil Falco, was a huge fan, and he talked my ear off about the New York Football Giants. And so we talked about them, and yeah. Right.
So how long were you with the Braves then? So you're officially a minor league baseball strength and conditioning coach? Was that
correct? So I spent 4 seasons with the Braves, just
working in the pros, working in the majors.
Yeah. So to say, yeah, it sounds a lot better than it first started out being. So 2008 is when I was hired on. I took the position for their low A team. And when it comes to minor league baseball or Major League Baseball, whatever you want to call it, the farm system is made up of several teams. So they have typically rookie ball, which is short season. Then they have low A, high A, double A, triple A, and then, professional on top of their, academies that they have spread out throughout the world. So there's a lot of individuals you're working with. I was hired on to be the direct strength coach with their low A team, which meant I was with them all year. I traveled on the buses, everything. So I lived the minor league life that first year. And when I asked people, hey, how much do you think I made my first year? And they're like, oh, you're a professional strength coach. You got to make, 6 figures. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And I'll share with you what I made my first year. It was $15,000 as a professional strength and conditioning coach for a major league organization. And there were some other perks with it, and it ended up being good after my first year. luckily I had a promotion. I worked really hard and I did well, and things worked out for me, and that was validated later. But breaking into the industry and people think immediately you're going to be compensated based on what you think you're worth and the hours you spend doing stuff. But that wasn't the case. Nowadays it's way better. As far as they take care of the coaches a lot more, and it's advanced in the past 10 years, which is definitely good to see. But I think I still have my first pay stub just to remind myself of the work and the pay and the lack of balance between the two. So, yeah.
But that's where networking comes in and everything else. We hope to provide that experience through interning, any kind of networking, any kind of observation hours that you can do during your 4 years here. But we always say this: when you go home for college between sophomore year, junior year, whatever, or even holiday break, that you are able to go out and shadow, talk to people, work a part-time job, be a physical therapist aide. I've had 2 students go through as physical therapist aides, and it really helped them as far as getting to know people and really just solidifying the fact that this is what they want to do. This is what they want to go into. So did you have a girlfriend, fiance, or wife? Like, where was she when you were like in Atlanta, making $15,000 a year?
So we were engaged at the time. So my wife was finishing up her senior year of college at Missouri State. So mind you, I chose a team that was about 1,000 miles away from me, where I could have been in Springfield, Missouri, where my wife was going to school.
You proposed first. You proposed to marry you.
Yeah.
And then you moved to Atlanta.
Exactly.
She was not with you in Atlanta?
Not initially. Then she moved down after graduation. So initially she was not. And then we went from we were just north of Atlanta in Rome, Georgia. We went from there to Orlando, and then we went back to St. Louis, and then I commuted from St. Louis to Orlando for the next 2 years. So we were a little bit everywhere in the Southeast.
Sure. And is she from, where's your wife from?
My wife is from just outside of Kansas City, a small town called Concordia, Missouri, right off I-70.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about family in a little bit.
Oh, yeah. That's all part of the process.
So good. So 4 years with the Braves. So 4 years with the Braves, you're making 15. Maybe you bumped up to 16, 17 at some point.
Yeah, in theory, it got way better for sure.
But at some point, but you kept your eyes open for different jobs, right? You're always kind of watching the websites and stuff. So you transitioned out.
I mean, you're always looking at stuff, and my wife was more looking for stuff more so than I was. So that's kind of how the next chapter of life came about. And that's just, if you're going in the field of strength and conditioning, especially at a high level, it needs to be understood that you need to prepare to not be in one place for a long period of time. If you talk to any, Power 5 strength coach or any, professional strength coach, there's a lot of moving around. There's not a lot of, staying in one place for more than a couple of years, because you become attached to the coaching staff. And if something with the coaching staff happens, a lot of times you're going to be connected with that, and people change out yearly.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that needs to be understood. And, I was, luckily we were young at the time, as far as my wife and I, we didn't have any kids just yet. So it worked out a little bit better. But once you start to settle down and have a family, it becomes more of an issue and more of a deciding factor for you. So,
here's a question for you. So this was not to age you too much, but this is 10, 15 years ago. Comparatively now, so because I'm looking at the list of students here that we have one I know who's looking into sports nutrition. We have a few looking in to obviously physical therapy, maybe personal training, but teams now, it's interesting. So two points that you just made. Number one is it's not a matter of just applying on a website or talking to the current strength coach. A lot of times there's an opening,
Sure.
But getting a hold of who the decision maker is. And this is for any company, any business, who's the decision maker in a business, in a company, for a team. But can you speak a little bit about all the different professionals that may work for a professional team or a bigger college program maybe?
Sure. I mean, it's very kind of niche oriented now. I mean, everybody has got a specialty for sure. So you're going to have your physical therapist. You're going to have, you have physical therapists, your physiotherapist. If you want to break it down into that, you'll have your strength coaches, your mental performance coaches. You'll have your strength and conditioning coaches. You'll have your return to play performance coaches. So everybody's got a specific task now, where When I started, the strength coach kind of overtook all those responsibilities outside of the physical therapist. You had athletic trainers, physical therapists, and strength coaches. Now you've got a specific coach, whether it's a speed coach, a coach, that's strictly in the weight room, a coach that may be a performance coach on the field. You're going to have your specific coaches as far as your skills. I mean, there's so many different entities, nutritionists, that factor in. It used to be a one-stop shop. Now the specialty is kind of the name of the game. And I think that provides more value for the position for sure. And you'll learn this more, but the idea of scope of practice and what your best fit's going to be based on what your interests are and what your skills are. And to kind of take that and run with it. I guess being the person where the jack of all trades kind of concept is good in theory initially. But as you progress in the profession, you're going to be more of a specialist in some way, shape, or form. And that's really going to get you to these higher levels and make you more marketable to what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. So I think it's, why when you're observing, even at the beginning when Matt talked about working at the JCC, working with 70-year-olds who just want to walk their stairs a little better, go down to their basement laundry room or pick up their grandchildren versus working with athletes who are trying to stay healthy, and run a little faster, to really kind of spread out. Because you may be surprised. I know I got into it because I was an athlete. I had to work extra hard in the weight room to succeed at the Division II basketball level for whatever amount of success that I had, but I was able to run the court and play, but that translated into me wanting to go into athletic training and strength conditioning. But now my primary clientele is 60, 65, 75. I had an 87-year-old yesterday who just wants to walk a little bit better, and better balance walking around the carpet of her condo. So you'd be surprised when you watch just different types of athletes and what you can do, kind of helping people out, right? And I think if you're thinking about going into fitness, even what sort of client you want to work with, if you're going like coach said, all the different specialists as far as who's working on what element of strength. What I had, I have this, if I can bring it up correctly. How about that? I show them this. This is one of my slides, kind of a continuum of where maybe as a strength coach between you and Jenny, but how you're working with people, that we start with health. Mm-hmm. Right? You can see that we start with health here, and then we get to movement, so that's more kinesiology, how well people are moving, as far as your physical therapy. Then we get into fitness. How fast are you? How strong are you? And then you're going to specifically use that fitness for performance, right? So how well do you shoot a basketball, hit a baseball? And then we're always mindful of longevity and, how well you're doing things, right? Or how long you can do things. You can play for 4 years. You could play basketball when you're 45 years old, whatever your thing is. So I think along this in health, we talk about nutrition, things like that. So even sports nutrition being a part of that whole spectrum of professionals that can work for a university, work for a team, et cetera, or working with athletes in that way. So that's one of the things we talk about quite a bit. So let me ask you, I want to switch gears a little bit. As students are looking into just kind of this, we'll get back into your step here to Webster University. To this point, let's jump into that. So Webster University, how'd you transition into Webster U? So how did you convince Webster University they needed a strength coach?
Well, I didn't really do that. So I was finishing up 2011 season in Florida, getting ready for fall instructional league, which is what minor leaguers do after the season's over. And my wife found a job. She had always been looking for jobs that are closer to home or at home. And again, we lived in St. Louis, and she found that Webster University posted a position for a strength and conditioning coach. And I applied for it. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't really care to acknowledge the idea of doing it, but because I was pretty well rooted in baseball, and I felt like I had a good shot to advance. But when you consider the totality of everything else that comes into play as far as your life and development and starting a family, that becomes a major part of it. So I filled out the questionnaire. I sent in my resume, came in for an in-person interview, flew in, which was a crazy day. I flew in for an interview, did the interview throughout the day, was taking a lunch, and then I flew back out and got back to Orlando, where the spring training facility was, at about 3 a.m. because of delays, and I went to work at 5 that morning. But
Nice.
I remember it vividly. Yeah. But I ended up getting the position, and when I got here, it wasn't an established position. This is the first coach they've ever had as far as strength and conditioning. So this is very new territory for the entire athletic department, and including myself, because there was nothing established, there was nothing to go off of. It was bare bones and just trying to understand what needed to be accomplished immediately. And that was just getting, people through the door and some, getting some contact with athletes and making sure that the coaches knew this is a valuable part of the training process and a valuable part of the athletics program, which has been a 10-year process. I can't say that I've fully accomplished it yet. It's still an ongoing process for sure. But it's definitely gotten way better over the past 10 years, which is crazy to say. I've been here for 10 years. So
nice. So question just popped up. So go back to the Atlanta Braves a little bit. We mentioned nutrition. Sure. So I want to, anytime someone has a question, just go ahead and throw it our way. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this up. So Michael asks, when you were with the Braves, how important was the implementation of nutrition to their athletic lifestyle?
To be quite honest, say it again. I'm sorry.
How was that handled? Who handled that? Was that anything that you did, or how's that worked out? Especially at the minor league level, right? Right.
So that's a great question. The strength and conditioning coaches essentially oversaw the nutritional component of it, which you would think a major league organization would have a on-staff nutritionist, especially at that time. This isn't 1940. It was, it's 2010, 2011. We should have an on-staff nutritionist to make available, but the strength and conditioning department / physical therapists / athletic trainers all kind of banded together and provided nutritional advice. We try to be as uniform as possible. But while I was there, we instituted the first, out of all the staffs they've had, we had the first, kind of nutrition summit for our athletes. We bring a nutritionist in, we provide information, we have a nutritionist go over things. But we still didn't have someone overseeing the food intake and recommendations based on what some of the training goals were and whatnot. So that actually was a hard fought process that we got approved, and they didn't implement it till 2012 when I left. So, right. It made me feel good that they actually, they used our work and our efforts to progress the program. Even though nutrition is probably one of the most important, if not the most important thing they have outside of their ability, even before strength and conditioning or their performance training in a weight room. So, or, just speed training, if they don't have the fuel to do the things they want to do, it's almost irrelevant. So, making, the higher ups understand that the nutritional component was a huge thing for bettering the organization as a whole and the players and the way they perform. That was a valuable lesson in learning how to do that. And it was also, a good feeling to know that they took our advice and ran with it. And I think Dr. Maria Spano is overseeing it now. I think she oversees for the Hawks, the Falcons, and the Braves, I want to say. And if you guys want to follow someone that has good sports nutritional advice, I would recommend following her. She's great, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. But
say her name again.
I think it's Dr. Maria Spano. And if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I apologize. Spano.
Yeah. She's presented to the NSCA a few times, right?
I'm sure she has, for sure. Yeah. She's very good at what she does, and she provides really good information. So, nutrition's huge. Yeah.
I know Michael's interested. Michael's interested in going into sports nutrition. I think that's why he asked. As far as
it's a big field. It's important.
Yeah. All right, so I want to go through a couple of questions I always ask, and you can kind of work in a little bit of what you're doing here at Webster University, but especially considering the students and as they're looking into graduate school, looking into minors, just taking electives, anything they can do, other certifications. What sort of certifications do you have?
So currently,
what have you had to, going back in the beginning too? What have you had? Sorry to cut you off.
So I started, even when I was in my undergrad, 2006, I was certified through, or 2005, Cooper Institute. And that's out of Dallas, Texas. My mom actually works there, and she's worked there for 20 plus years. So my first certification was a personal training certification through them that I was able to take in undergrad, so I could actually start personal training while I was in undergrad. And that's something that I value very much. I really enjoyed that process, where I actually had to go to the Cooper Institute in Dallas, Texas, and take the test there, where they have, a written and a practical, which I think is interesting because a lot of tests nowadays do not have a practical. And I think that's a valuable part of understanding and applying the information that you're learning. It's kind of nerve-wracking to do something like that, but also it challenges you a bit to really, really understand and apply, which is what the field is. It's not just regurgitation, it's actually application of what you're learning and what's the best way for the person or individuals you're working with and how are they going to receive that content. So that was my first one. And then upon graduation, I got my CSCS, so the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist certification through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. And on top of that, I became a registered strength and conditioning coach, which is an additional certification that strength and conditioning coaches have specifically. And I think I got that in 2011. So I'm coming up 10 years on that one. But those are the main ones I have now. I've looked into other certifications, but you'll get into the realm of over certifying, I feel like. And maybe as a young coach, you're going to find yourself wanting more than you need. And that's okay, because it gives you the opportunity to learn what you want to learn. But as far as, further certifications I would like to get, I would say functional range conditioning. So like the FRC or, TPI, the rotational stuff.
And just spinning.
Things that I'm interested in, I think it all blankets the same thing, and you can learn just about anything anymore if you really want to without getting a certification. But I think the CSCS is a great blanketed certification for you to have to validate your common knowledge in regards to training individuals in all the performance realms. And then if you want to make more of a specialty out of what you do, start looking into those additional certifications. But I mean, if you go through NASM, if you go through the ACSM, whatever, they're all going to be great foundational certifications. But you're going to find that the certification is really just the foundation of general knowledge, and then everything else that you're going to learn or apply or your failures and successes are going to come through experience. And I would say 95% of that is going to be experience for sure.
Yeah, which we do have. Two things. Michael, there is the dietitian coach is talking about, Marie Spaniel, MS, master's degree, registered dietitian, a certified strength conditioning specialist, and what's that, coach?
Certified sport.
Sure.
I don't know.
Anyway, that's her website too, though. Marie Spaniel, and her website actually is the first article is Stop Playing Make Believe Nutrition. So it's a big thing about CrossFit nutrition. So a little bit about CrossFit nutrition there if you want to read that. And then as far as certifications go, a few of you have already asked me, but I have maybe 2 students who are studying for NASM right now, NASM, the National Academy of Sports Medicine. NASM, we just call it NASM for short. Coach and I are both certified strength conditioning specialists, so NSCA, CSCS. And then actually behind me, this is a youth fitness specialist certification. The International Youth Conditioning Association is pretty good. And then up here is the functional movement screen is a FMS Gray Cook certification. So we'll talk all about these in class and just different avenues. But coach says, you become a personal trainer, then you decide you want to work with one type of demographic or one type of maybe orthopedic challenge, a neuromuscular challenge. Maybe you want to become a specialist in your area and lower back health. And so whether you're a performance specialist, as coach said, if you want to get faster on the track, talk to, Susie, the track specialist, right? If you have a lower back pain and you go to a doctor, you want to be in that doctor's mind, frontal lobe, to say, you know what, go see, Henry down the street because he's awesome with SI problems. If you have sacroiliac problems, or it's maybe technique and tools, right? Mm-hmm. So it might be acupuncture, acupressure, trigger point therapy. You go into chiropractic, you go to Logan Chiropractic, and you might end up being an acupuncturist, but you might end up being a nutritionist and herbalist. All right. So we'll have 2 more chiropractors who also speak. One's more of a herbs and nutrition, and the other one's more of an orthopedic guy as well. So, all right. Question we always ask: as you're thinking about your classes, if you could go back to school and take something different, maybe take another class, maybe take, maybe minor in something, for the students out there, what are you thinking as far as another class you might take?
Well, usually I say the same thing. I enjoy writing, and I'm gonna backtrack, or I'm not gonna backtrack. I'm gonna transition my way of thinking on this. So I feel like if you want to be good at writing, it's just like anything. It's repetition, it's consistency, seeing what you're good at and what you're not. So I'm gonna change gears, and I'm gonna say taking another philosophy class. And the reason I say philosophy, I think currently we have an inability holistically as a society to have educated conversation, good conversation. And what I mean by that is being able to understand that we're not always right. We're sometimes going to be wrong, and we have to listen to, viewpoints of others. So based on a
nuance, there's nuance. There's no room
right.
for
I know. Based on a spectrum, you have preferences that validate your opinion. You're going to have people that criticize, or things that criticize your opinion. And then in the middle, you're going to have things that help to question. And I think that's where we need to sit is kind of in the middle. It's good to question what you do. It's good to have other people question what you do, because that makes you better at what you're trying to accomplish. And it also makes you look into new things. So, and I don't know if anybody's taken a philosophy class, but my first experience with it, there is a lot of arguing. There's a lot of viewpoints that people want to get their perspective out. But it's fairly constructive. I mean, it got heated sometimes, always, everybody's got their preferences, but just being able to have a good conversation, constructive, good, bad, or indifferent. And hopefully that's something that can stimulate some good change in some way, shape, or form. In the way you go about coaching, the way you go about foreseeing a specific movement or a specific idea. So I think that's something that everybody can take from is being able to have good conversation that is going to be a little bit out of their comfort zone in regards to what their normal normal ideas are, normal preferences are when it comes to training individuals or your philosophy. And that just makes you grow better as an individual. And I think you get better at that as you get older. When you're younger, you think you know everything. You come out of school and you think you've got the method, and that's typically not the case. You've hit on it a few times. You need to be an expert observer. I don't think people realize that. Everybody wants to be validated for what they do and how good they are at something. But if you just sit back, say less, and just watch everything, and the spectrum you showed up just a little while ago with that slide, you can observe or be great at observing at every one of those points that you hit on the spectrum. And the better you are at that, the better applicator you're going to be. You're going to be an actionable person when it comes to applying things, and then you're going to be an overall better learner. So those are just some tidbits of advice but I would say being good at understanding other people's views is going to be a huge thing. And that's definitely something I can work on.
I thought if you believe something, you just post it on Facebook. I thought you just tweet it and then go about your day.
That's the case.
Yeah. Have discussions. That's how you solve the problems in our country. I thought,
right.
You just post it, no, sweet. I love that. And he did mention writing, and I will say, a lot of as university professors, and what we like to think is that we are creating critical thinkers. If you want to be a critical thinker, writing is fantastic. Correct. And I think I'm being smart. I'm being sarcastic, of course, but instead of jumping to Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, whatever, if you're able to write out something and articulate your thoughts and your ideas about something, so whether you're writing your 1,000-word, kinesiology essay to me this semester, the more you can articulate and think about these things and think about viewpoints. And we talk about a lot of this in your upcoming classes. The difference between, and it's strictly in the context of exercise science, if I want someone to squat better, improve their squat, I'll say Coach Saitz is going to do it kind of this way as a strength coach and as Coach Saitz, because his perspective is unique. Versus if you go to Logan Chiropractic, they might say, improve your squat with this. We all want to hinge better. We all want our knees to be mobile, and stable and different things like that. But everybody kind of has their other philosophy. And that's the other thing as far as kind of a teamwork environment, as far as I have clients that I see and I help them in a ton of ways. But if they tell me they're going to go take Pilates or go see a chiropractor, I encourage it. Go get another perspective. Go talk to them. Give me your feedback. Give them their email. We can talk about it. So I think even in this context, in exercise science, we could do better at communicating, checking our ego at the door, and really working together on how we're improving health and performance of a lot of our clients and patients out there. So no, but you can't take another philosophy. That's your GCP course here.
I know.
Go take the meaning of life, right?
There you
Take
go.
that first semester. Think about life a little bit. How about what skills? So 2 more questions. What skills, let's say, if you trained, and you've alluded to this a little bit, I think, even in your last answer. If you were, what am I thinking? Oh, you came into this with your education degree. You came into this with your strength conditioning certification. But what skills maybe have you had to pick up along the way that maybe you kind of caught you off guard? Whether it's virtual interviews, right, and technology, or something else that maybe you didn't think about or prepare enough for, that you've had to learn along the way?
Well, number one, there's a lot of things, but technology is going to be big just in our current, situation and circumstance. So we can always get better at communicating in that regard. But the idea of communication, and let me backtrack and say relationships is the most important, which is not something you're going to necessarily learn in a science curriculum. It's going to be more or less how things move, whether it's how they function, how they move, and the inner workings of the body itself. And then the idea of you're working with human beings and individuals, and everybody's going to respond differently to the way you deliver information, the way you coach them, your temperament, how you respond back, how you listen to them. And that's not something you necessarily learn, again, in your undergrad. You learn that through your experience, and to value your experience is going to be huge. So like with me, I had 2 major mentors throughout my development. My first one, his name's Tyler O'Banion. And the funny thing is both of them were strength coaches. Neither one of them are strength coaches anymore, which is interesting how this works. But just because it's a pretty overwhelming profession if you're someone that's not prepared for it. But Tyler got me really interested in programming and systematizing training and understanding all these different methods and how to improve upon the body. So the science with the application and kind of the conjunction or combination of the two. And I worked with multiple clientele. He was an assistant at Missouri State and then became the interim head. And I got to work with student athletes and then see him with his, elementary athletes or whatever. So I've worked in multiple facets. Plus I trained with him all the time. So we built a relationship based on that and a friendship. So I had the specific understanding of programming and physical training with him. And then my other one, Lucky DeCosta, was the former minor league director of strength and conditioning with the Braves. He's a firefighter now. He was in the profession for 15 years as a strength and conditioning coach in baseball. And the biggest takeaway I had from him is the importance of the relationship between the clientele and yourself, and how you promote the information you're trying to deliver to the group. And that's communication, but the relationship has to be there before communication can really be effective. You can read 100 books on communication and how to effectively communicate, but if there's no seamless relationship, and I'm not just talking like a working relationship, but really understanding who the individual is or the group is, and the inner workings of their life, and where they've come from, what they've been through, what's going on outside of the specific areas you're working with in their life. That allows to provide an avenue for effective communication, essentially, which means you can effectively coach. And there's no point in having all this scientific knowledge and ability if you can't communicate it well. So those are the skills that are essential. So not only was the programming and experience as far as being under a bar and understanding the training process, that's important, and you got to know it, and you're going to get that through experience. On top of, or in conjunction with, relationship building and communication. Those are the couple skills I would say everybody needs to hone in on. But you start learning that through observation, and in any capacity, whether you're just a volunteer assistant, whether you're an intern, just watch, write down what you see, take notes. You're going to see good and bad. So take note. It's all good information, whether it's what to do or what not to do. It's all good information, but take note of how you would approach something and how people respond to things, and you'll find that you can use that information later.
Cool. And I was going to say, so we have a comment. I'm going to get to that comment, but I was going to say or a good question. But my final answer, you just kind of answered it. My final question was going to be something about managing your home life and managing your children, because you have 2 kiddos now, right?
Right, correct.
You have 2 kids, and the fact that you have this wonderful, lovely wife and fiance that was patient with you in the beginning, and your in-laws and your family and everything else. But I think you just nailed it on the head. It's all about your relationship and your communication. That if you choose to be in a relationship, you're affecting the lives of other people. You're affecting the lives of everyone around you. The more you can communicate with them, the better. But let me get to this last question. So which job, are you supposed to just say your current job that you're happy? But which job that you have had have you liked the most? And if it's not just simply Webster University, maybe different parts of jobs or different aspects of jobs you like the most.
Well, I've liked all of them. Let me start off with that. They've all provided me with improving upon what I do. So, and they've given me the knowledge and experience that has taken me to this point in my life. So I can't say that I've disliked any one of them. But when it comes to having the greatest amount of fulfillment and overall balance in regards to work and then personal life, everything, and being able to truly connect is going to be my current position. And it's an evolving position. If you asked me this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said it. But I've gotten better and better at it. And I've learned to appreciate the value of truly teaching. And when I say truly teaching, it kind of gets back into that idea of when I worked before I got into baseball with people who are wanting to prove upon a skill, and you're helping them to achieve that task. When you work with professional athletes, they're good at what they do. A lot of times it's just because they are. It's not because they necessarily work hard. You want that to be the case, but it is not always the case. So the value you provide to their overall development isn't as highly taken by them as you would want it to be. They don't value it as much, dependent upon the individual. There may be some guys that really value your opinion and what you do for them, and there's going to be some that don't. So there's kind of that disconnect there in regards to that. There's some people that are just good to be good, and that's the case. But when you're really wanting to provide some value in what you do, and ensuring that you're getting fulfillment, not just from the athlete feeling better on the field or anything. It's really just, does the athlete contact you when they're gone? Do they still keep in contact with you? Do they still keep up with your life, and do you keep up with theirs? Which is something that I have not experienced with any other job I've had, is that I've got these wonderful relationships, and we've been able to work together in oftentimes in a capacity that a lot of people don't like to. A lot of people don't necessarily like to lift weights or do training for sport. They like to play their sport, and rightfully so. So for them to sacrifice their time and give me a little bit of effort and actually an ear to listen and try to do what I'm trying to communicate with them and be open-minded, I'm appreciative of that. But you get to see that side of someone and be able to affect them in that capacity, which in some of the other positions I've had, that it wasn't necessarily the case. So overall, if I'm going to say just holistically, I would say my current position, and I've been here for 10 years. So if I didn't like it, I would leave, So if that doesn't give you an answer, I mean, I don't know what else does, but it's been an evolving process, but it's been an awesome process, and I'm still learning and evolving it as we go. So my current position is the best.
All right. Awesome. I love it. Yeah. I just got an email from a former soccer player. Lily just emailed me and said, "Hey, I'm interviewing for a job at BJC." And oh my God, I was like, my gosh, we were just doing like research yesterday, and now she's interviewing for a job and writing whatever. So I love keeping up with a lot of
that's the cool stuff. Yeah. That's the cool stuff.
All right, we're going to wrap up. I want to ask the students one more thing. Just put down one more comment. Put down how you are watching this. Just put phone, PC, whatever, laptop, iPad. Just put that down as your comment. And as you are doing this, I just want to say thank you to Coach Saitz. If there's any other question, you guys can always get a hold of Coach. I mean, a lot of you guys know that where he is. He's going to be down in Old Orchard, but he's up in his office, usually in the gymnasium. He's always hanging out. So shoot him an email. Ask any questions about today. But I think this was great. I think this worked out well. So I'll get feedback from all the students. But thank you, Coach, so much for hanging out.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for your time.
But Coach is around, so find him anytime. All right. Remember to tip your waiters, and I'll see some of you in a few hours. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. All right. Thanks. Which hand's on the screen? Thanks. All right. So you guys put down how you're watching this, and then you can get out of here. Have a great week. Stay safe. Stay healthy. All right. Mostly laptops. The phone, laptop. Good. All right. Cool. All right. Thanks, Coach. This was good.
Absolutely. Right. I think the format's really cool.
No, this is good. This was fun. All right. We'll catch up soon.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right. See you, man. All right. Thank you for still there. Thank you so much for letting me know you watched on your phone, laptop, iPhone. Good. We'll talk more about this, but I think this worked out well. So, all right. Perfect. Thanks. Thanks, Michael. All right. Shoot me an email if you have any questions. Otherwise, and just watch out for Canvas. Again, if you haven't changed your notifications on your Canvas, your connections, make sure the notifications are changed. I'm assuming you all got my announcement, right, when I sent that announcement out. Otherwise, I'll send Outlook emails, and we'll just stay in touch. All right. I'm out of here.